Hey there, Contractor Kev here with Overseas Contractor Academy, coming to you once again from my apartment in Colombia. I've still not found a place to record besides here. I put out word in Facebook groups I'd be willing to pay to use someone's home studio. I looked for commercial options, and I'm still here. So we're just gonna make the best of it that we can. Again, noise from outside, lighting maybe not so good, kind of echoey. Let's just focus on the information and try to get it out there. Today we're definitely going to do something different. No bumper video, none of that. I want to talk about an experience that one of the people that went through the Contractor Academy, got the knowledge, got overseas, what he went through in hopes that other people can learn from it. He wrote to me recently, and his goal is the same. He wants people to be able to learn from him, and that's, to me, that's the ultimate mark of like someone that's cool, is like, hey, I had this negative experience, maybe other people could learn from it, and hey, what Contractor Kev, like, what would you say? So we're gonna read his letter today, we're gonna see what he went through, and then we'll talk about it after. Hello, Contractor Kevin. First off, just Kev. Like, Kevin is the person that was in trouble with my mom when I was young. So just Kev, Contractor Kev. That's what my friends call me. As your business is the contracting industry, I'm sure you love getting letters about success stories of various people. Well, today I'd like to present you as something I feel is equally as important, a story of a contracting failure. I'm a firm believer that in failure, important lessons can be learned, and I would like potential future contractors to know mine. So again, this is the mark of a super cool guy. As a former military veteran with multiple tours, I came to learn about contractors in Afghanistan. The idea of someone running an MWR tent for 6 figures a year was obviously an appealing dream. So for the first 5 years or so after getting out of the service, I kind of bounced around several potential career paths until I found something I could tolerate, if not like, and make a reasonable wage for the amount of work: commercial trucking. Cool. Now, with trucking, you have many periods of downtime that aren't quite long enough to get sleep, but they're long enough to do oddball searches on your phone, and one of those searches was military contracting with a focus on what's going on in modern times. This led me to Overseas Contracting and to the program that's offered. After watching the free videos on YouTube and purchasing the course, I had a professional create my resume, and I started applying for heavy trucking driver and related positions, hoping to score that sweet 6-figure income. I had actually contacted Contractor Kev, me, so we did share a few emails prior, regarding whether or not it was appropriate for me to start applying with only 2.5 years experience when a lot of positions required 3 to 5 years experience. So, and what I told them at the time is, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So better that you apply and they say no than you don't even put your name in the hat. Eventually, I did make a breakthrough and was sent a message from a recruiter from one of the big overseas contractors. Now, there were a few things I was expecting when I got the job offer letter. The first was that there appeared to be no room for negotiation, or I'm sorry, he got some things he wasn't expecting. The first was that there appeared to be no room for negotiation on the terms of the contract. Speaking to other people who took the same posting, they got the same feeling as well. We'll circle back to that. The second was the pay. I understood, due to Afghanistan being announced as being shut down, there would be a glut of available workers. And what I expected was the result of a bunch of highly skilled contractors fighting over the same positions. Instead, it came in the form of lower wages. So just real quick, anytime you have any market, increased supply with a steady demand, the price drops. So like if I'm manufacturing shoes and 500 other people start manufacturing shoes in the same place, there's only so many people buying shoes on average. The demand stays the same, but the supply goes up. The price is always going to drop. Now, commercial trucking is a very lucrative job right now. The industry has been supported by baby boomers for decades, without enough Gen Xers and millennials taking up the jobs to maintain the steady workforce level. And now that those boomers are retiring, self-driving semi-trucks still years off, it's a great time for me. I was working about 60 hours a week, bringing home my yearly income of somewhere around $68,000, doing hazmat hauling. So imagine my surprise when I got the job offer and it's for an hourly position. Every job these days is put as an hourly, not every, most jobs these days by the contracts. This is the way Defense Contract Management Association wants them listed. No matter how they came up with the pay, they're going to break it all the way back down into an hourly rate. So that's just why that is. Imagine my surprise when I get the job offer letter and it's for an hourly position with an estimated yearly income of not that much more than what I was already making, $78,000. Again, we'll circle back to that point. Now looking at this, I thought there had to be some kind of message in between the lines that made this job palatable. Maybe you were realistically only going to work 6 hours a day but bill 12. Maybe there were several elements not listed in the pay guide that would somehow incentivize candidates. I felt like there had to be something they were putting down that I just wasn't picking up. I also had a bit of fear that rejecting this position might actually blacklist me somehow. I just decided to accept this position. So finally I get over the Great Sandbox, landing at my future work site, which was in Iraq. There doesn't appear to be much in the way of amenities for the place. I kind of expected swimming pools being in the Air Force. Now, being an ex-Air Force guy, I gotta admit, we're the very first people to try to make our surroundings cushy. But these days in Iraq, you're not gonna get cushy. We've drawn down to a very, a level where it's nowhere like it used to be, where you had, all those pictures of like swimming pools and Escalades and all that kind of stuff. There were details that were intentionally vague about the job. This, I understand, is for operational security and the fact that the left hand may not know what the right hand is doing. Again, this is covered in the course, but a lot of these recruiters have never been overseas. So the person you're talking to initially and interviewing with, they may not actually know the full details of what is going on the ground and exactly what your personal job is. So sometimes there's confusion in those instances. However, now here we get to the important part. However, when I came to work here, I expected to be driving a truck. Well, I was driving one, but I didn't expect it to be the Porta-John cleaning truck. Once I figured out my route and found my helpers, they were third country nationals, who could speak enough English to make working manageable, I started to assess just what I was getting myself into. The truck part of the vehicles were maintained well enough, but the Porta-John cleaning side was not. Leaky pipes spraying feces, that's always lovely. No real way to clean up spills other than pressure washing the poo. Blowers were on their last legs, with the helpers putting fresh oil in every day, and sometimes even dumping in random spots on the base, hoping no one would notice, leaving me wondering if the EPA actually has any jurisdiction out here. I'd say it left a bad taste in my mouth, but that would be just the poo that got sprayed in there one time, which I still need to get a hepatitis shot for. So real quick, again, we all know we're at the tail end of Iraq, so you're not going to get anyone spending the hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy brand new trucks or brand new equipment out there. It's just not going to happen. So because of that, it's going to be just maintaining the fleet as best you can, keep it running. So you're not going to get anyone going over there, whether it's heavy equipment, trucks, vehicles, whatever. You're not going to get brand new nice stuff there, unfortunately. As if the work wasn't bad enough, the conditions away from the truck weren't actually that much better. I lived in Arizona for several years, and I understood Iraq to be a similar climate. I can handle dry heat, but the physical labor in the midday sun was breaking me off hard. Now, if the job was done very quickly and efficiency, you could sort of sham out back in your air-conditioned room for a few hours of your 84-hour work week. But when you came back out to finish your day, you were walking back into the same heat you left several hours ago. Well, where was it going to go? I personally was having a problem where I was losing so much weight so fast that the pants I bought with me were falling off even with the belt I had. And the PX, the base exchange, didn't have any belts for the size that I was falling down to. That's why God made hole punches, because I had to do the same thing myself. You just gotta punch a new hole, dude. That's how it works. You gotta make it happen. I was gonna have a problem in the form of sunburnt ass in a few months if I didn't keep it up, obviously from his pants falling down. After a few weeks of doing this, my first Iraq paycheck comes. That's what I'm here for, right? The big bucks. And what do I find? Well, I get a paycheck with just $200 more than I probably would have made back in the States. Third point we'll circle back to. So $200 for an extra 20 hours a week in Iraq conditions and dealing with poo. And so he's not happy about any of that, obviously. So yeah, I started to plan my withdrawal from Iraq. First, I spoke to my department head stating that I was looking at leaving and made it clear that I was open to renegotiate this situation. I understand that he couldn't adjust my pay, but there may be other incentives he had available, such as maybe sponsoring me for a clearance or reassigning me to some other position. He made it perfectly clear that I had two options, either keep doing what I was doing or leave, so I chose to leave. All right, so in this case, when you get hired for a position, in order for you to flip to a different position, your position either has to go away or you need to have been there for probably about 6 months, because basically then they're going to have to just hire whatever position you vacate. So most of the time, if you sign a contract saying I'll do this job at this place, it's going to be 6 months to a year before they're willing to ever move you to another one, unless your job goes away. Now, if your job goes away and you're already there, a lot of times they'll be like, you know, let's see if we can find some kind of work you can do. So that's what that is. Apparently morale is pretty low for a lot of people in that company right now. When getting signatures from various department heads clearing me to leave, nobody put up any real resistance because if they resist signing you to leave, that's human trafficking. They're holding you against your will. So they are going to sign you out. And almost half of them said that they were actually looking for other opportunities themselves or something to that effect. I would say that overall, I had a pretty crappy experience with overseas contracting. Zing. That said, there are some things to take away here. I did get hands-on experience with manual transmissions, which was a skill that's actually relatively rare in younger truckers. And I now know that when a contracting company provides an offer, not to expect any kind of military graft on top of it. I'm not actually sure what that means. Additionally, I now get to put mercenary on my resume, although that title would be a bit misleading. I can certainly say, though, I've seen some shit in Iraq. Fucking gold, man. I'm on a plane back to America as I type this, where I plan to go back into commercial trucking. I intend to passively apply for additional contracting positions, but I have much more refined expectations should I be contacted again. So there you have it. Okay, so the first thing to notice is this guy was serious. Like, you know, I get so many emails and messages and comments, you know, oh, I've got this many applications, I've been looking for this long, I'm not getting any results. Got the tools, got the knowledge, got his resume professionally rewritten, and got a job overseas. So it can be done, all right? Oh, this is impossible, don't give up. Like, get the right tools and you get the damn job. And the second thing is, how often are you good at something the very first time you try it? So think back to like playing a sport, playing a musical instrument, sex, riding a bike, whatever the hell it was. The very first time you did it, you probably sucked. And contracting can sometimes be the exact same. So basically, the idea of improving on anything is you study, you get some knowledge, you get some basic ideas on how to do it, you try it, you gauge your results, you make adjustments, you try again, now you've got an improved, you're probably gonna have a much more improved result, and back and forth until you get the desired result that you're like, oh wow, that really worked that time. So I would just say this was his fledgling effort. He's obviously learned a lot of things, but if he tries again, my guess is he's gonna have a much, much better approach. I'd say the next thing is this guy, the next time he's interviewing, is probably going to ask exactly what kind of cargo he's handling. So that's just one of those questions that didn't seem to really happen the first time around, but it will definitely happen the next time around. So unfortunately, like, this guy has a hazmat cert. Well, you get a base of a couple thousand people all living together. One of the very first things you got to do to stop diseases is sanitation control. And so the biggest hazmat you're going to have is shit, all right? So unfortunately, it's just the way it is, where they need those drivers of what we call, colloquially, the SST, which I believe is sanitation and something else truck. But of course, for those of us who've been in Iraq, Afghanistan, it's colloquially known as the shit sucker truck. So he was driving in an SST with a crew of TCNs, third country nationals, that they would do the cleaning or whatever, and I'm sure he would help out doing whatever was necessary, but he's the guy, because you can't just leave it to TCNs. He's the guy that is making sure that the job gets done. So I would say for him, what my recommendation would be is, if you don't want to do the SST job, then you have a hazmat cert, knowing that they're first going to try to put you into that, because how many people want to drive the shit sucker truck? Like, not many. So of course they're going to try to put people into that, and maybe even be a bit vague about what they're going to be doing on purpose, so that people show up and just do the damn job. But there's other jobs driving hazmats besides SSTs. And the one that comes to my mind is fuel. So there are fuel points, fuel distribution points around the base. And of course there's a JP8 that is getting out used on the flight lines and stuff. So I would look into fuel truck driving, quite honestly. If I had your qualifications, that's kind of the route I would probably try to take. Okay, so a couple little things from within the letter itself that I said I would circle back to, if I can find them. Okay, so mostly about the pay. So the first thing I would say is, okay, you're making 68 at home, 78 overseas. Please go back and watch the video where I talk about the difference between an overseas salary versus a stateside salary. Because yes, you may only look and go, oh, I'm making 10,000 more. If you look at it that way, that's going to be nothing but frustration for you, because you're working a lot more hours in rougher conditions. However, if you look at it as, I have no expenses. I'm not paying for somewhere to live, I'm not paying for gas, I'm not paying for a phone, I'm not paying for electric, I'm not paying for anything. All that money can go straight in the bank and just pile up. Whereas if you're making a salary back home, half of it is going to go out in bills easily. Probably 2/3, maybe more of that is going to go out to your rent, your car payment, your gas, your insurance. All the stuff that you pay for at home, that's the difference. Is after a year of making 78,000, let's say you save 70% of it, which is a very low estimate, you know, because you've been over there. There's nothing to spend your money on, buddy. So you're over there and all your money's piling up. 70% of 78,000, let's say that's how much you save, and you're at the end of the year, you're at 50 grand, easy, right? So now you've got $50,000 saved, whereas you work for 60,000 at home, but let's say 70% of that gets spent on bills. At the end of the year, you've got maybe 6, 7, 8,000. And that's if you save really well, like, you know, a really good percentage, which most Americans don't when they're at home. So that is the difference. You do a year at home, you save 7 grand. You do a year overseas, you save 50 plus. That's the difference. If you just look at the nominal amount, like, oh, 60,000 versus 78, yeah, you're gonna be frustrated. You have to look at what you're going to actually get over time at the end of the year. What part is yours? So instead of just looking at the top line number. Okay, and the last thing I do want to talk about is contractor pay. Yes, it is going down. When I was at contracting headquarters for the Army, I voiced that opinion, and so did several other people. And this is the problem, is the contractors over time, just like the effing space shuttle, they keep bidding lower and lower and lower, trying to win contracts. And the problem is, where does that money come from? Well, they're cutting pay. This is just what's happening. It's just the way it is. So what happens then is you've cut the pay so low that people like this guy, he's going to go overseas and go, well, damn, you know, I'm not making that much more. Like, this isn't worth it. And so you end up with this really high turnover. And a bunch of us that were in the sort of figuring out LogCat 5 on that team, man, we were trying to say, like, these pays that they're swearing, they swore that they could pay people that much and they would stay. And there was a bunch of us that had been overseas that were saying it's not realistic. But in the end, you have to accept that if they're saying they can do the job for this, you know, that's what it is. And so because they have bid so low, and for certain contracts, this is not every contract, but this was probably a log cap position. So for the contractors, they bid low and they're locked into that low pay. Whereas, you know, a couple years ago, in fact, or if you're just on a smaller contract, you're not on a big log cap contract, the pay is more of a negotiated thing where it'll be stated as a range. The company will say, we're going to recruit someone and we're going to pay them somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000. And of course, when they contact you, they're going to say the pay is $80,000, and it's up to you to know that you can negotiate that. But for certain large contracts like log cap, there's the competition to get those huge, like, top line, like the dollar amount of log cap was like in the billions, right? So they're trying to win their big piece of that big pie. And so they're like really bidding low, and they're just swearing like, we can just pay them this amount. And so then in those cases, the pay is non-negotiable. So that does happen in the contracting world. But I recommend everyone try to negotiate your pay, because, you know, maybe they say no, but if you don't say no, well, then you're definitely not getting any kind of, you know, there's gonna be no more money coming out of them. So that would kind of be my last point, is the pay for log cap positions generally these days not as negotiable as it used to be, and sometimes not negotiable at all. It depends also on your skill level, and that's not to put anyone down, you know, like, but if you're management and you're higher, and you've got a lot of experience, guess what? They know to get that kind of guy, they may have to pay a lot more. They may have to be flexible and give them some benefits. One of the benefits he mentions is getting a clearance. Well, clearances are attached to the position that you work in. So if you're working as an SST guy, you're not going to get a clearance. That you're just not accessing anything classified. So basically, there's no way, like, whatever the company does, they want to be able to write off with the government. So if you're in a position that requires a clearance, they'll get it for you, and the government will reimburse them the cost. If you're in a position that doesn't, you know, they're not going to get it. So that's not something generally you can negotiate. It's attached to the position, so you accept the job or not. But for someone in management, someone with a lot of experience, especially someone going into program or project management, anything, a site manager, that level type stuff, then yeah, maybe there's negotiation because you're kind of on the middle to higher end of things. Whereas if you're just seen as a skilled laborer, like let's say you're a plumber or, you know, an SST driver or something like that, you're not going to have the same negotiating power. It's just the way it is, and I'm sorry about that. But so yeah, so that should cover pay and give you guys a lot better idea. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for another week here in Columbia. Again, please do give me feedback on the sound, and which I know is not so great, the lighting, like, are you guys getting something out of this, or should I just like wait until I can be back between two ferns? Just let me know, all right? And if you have any questions, please hit me up in the comments. I'm thinking about doing a Q&A video in the not too distant future here. So yeah, so hit me up with any questions, comments, whatever the hell, like, and I'll bring them up, all right? So that's it for this week. Until next time, roll up your sleeves, get to work, get yourself the knowledge, get yourself the tools over at overseascontractoracademy.com. Get overseas, get to where you're piling up the money, and just change your life, all right? See you next time.